So you ask, when did I realize that I was so close from losing everything and becoming nothing? It wasn't when the club released me. It wasn't when my wife took everything and left. It wasn't even when I found myself sleeping on a park bench, wondering how I would eat tomorrow. It was 3 years later, standing in a hospital room, holding my newborn daughter, tears streaming down my face, finally understanding what actually mattered. My name is Marco Benedetti. I was once the most famous footballer in Italy. Then I was nothing. And now, I am everything I was always meant to be. Let me start at the beginning. I grew up in Naples. Not the Naples of postcards and tourist photos, but the Naples of narrow alleys and crumbling buildings and dreams that rarely survive contact with reality. My father worked at the docks when there was work. My mother cleaned offices at night. We lived in 3 rooms. My parents, my grandmother, my 2 sisters, and me. 6 people, 3 rooms, 1 bathroom, and a football that my father saved for 3 months to buy me when I turned 7. That ball was the most precious thing I owned. I slept with it. I ate with it next to me. I took it everywhere, even to school, even though the teachers threatened to take it away. Because that ball wasn't just a ball. It was a promise, a way out, a ticket to a life my parents could barely imagine. I was good. I knew I was good. Everyone knew I was good. By the time I was 10, scouts were already watching. By 12, I was in the Napoli Youth Academy. By 15, I was training with the first team. By 17, I made my debut. 60,000 people, screaming my name. A boy from the narrow alleys, suddenly standing on the pitch where Maradona himself had once played. I scored that day. A header from a corner kick. The crowd erupted. My mother cried in the stands. My father, who had never cried in front of me, wiped his eyes and looked away. And I thought, this is it. This is everything. I had arrived. The next 5 years were a rocket ship. Napoli to Juventus at 19. Juventus to Real Madrid at 21. The biggest club in the world, paying me 15 million euros a year, plus endorsements, plus bonuses, plus everything a 21-year-old could possibly want. I had cars. I had houses. I had watches that cost more than my childhood apartment. I had women throwing themselves at me everywhere I went. And I had Valentina Romano, the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. A supermodel whose face was on billboards across Europe, whose Instagram had 20 million followers, whose presence in any room made everyone else disappear. She approached me at a party in Milan. "You're Marco Benedetti," she said, "and you're Valentina Romano. I know who I am." She smiled. That smile, it could have launched ships, started wars, destroyed empires. "Buy me a drink," she said. "I'm the one who's supposed to ask that. I don't wait for men to ask. I take what I want." She looked at me with eyes that promised everything. "Right now, I want you." We were married 6 months later. A wedding that cost 3 million euros. Covered by every magazine in Europe. Celebrities and athletes, and people whose names I didn't even know, all gathered to celebrate our perfect union. My mother sat in the front row, looking uncomfortable in her designer dress, surrounded by people who lived in a world she couldn't comprehend. My father didn't come. "Too fancy for me," he said. "I'd just embarrass you." I should have insisted. I should have told him that he could never embarrass me. But I didn't, because some part of me, some ugly, shameful part, agreed with him. My parents didn't fit in this world. My old friends didn't fit. My old life didn't fit. I was Marco Benedetti now. Superstar. Millionaire. Married to the most beautiful woman in the world. Why would I need anything from my past? The decline started slowly. So slowly I didn't even notice. A party here. A late night there. A training session missed because I was hungover. A match where I was a step too slow, a second too late, because my body wasn't ready. The manager pulled me aside. "Marco, you need to focus. You're not the player you were 6 months ago. I'm fine. Just a rough patch. It's not a rough patch. It's a pattern. The drinking, the gambling, the lifestyle. That's my business. It's the club's business when it affects your performance. Get it together, or we'll have to make decisions neither of us wants. I nodded, said all the right things, and went to a party that night that lasted until 4 in the morning. Valentina didn't help. She spent money like it was infinite. Bags that cost 50,000 euros. Jewelry that cost more than houses. Trips to private islands. Designer clothes. The most expensive of everything. We can afford it, she would say when I occasionally questioned an expense. You're Marco Benedetti. Act like it. And I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that the money would never stop. That my body would never betray me. That I could party every night and still be the player I was at 21. But bodies don't work that way. And money definitely doesn't work that way. I was 23 when Real Madrid released me. The meeting lasted 12 minutes. We've decided not to renew your contract. You can't be serious. Your performance has declined significantly. Your off-field behavior has become a liability. We wish you well, Marco. But it's time for you to move on. I walked out of that office in a daze. Surely someone would want me. I was Marco Benedetti. I had scored goals in Champions League finals. I had been called the next great Italian striker. Someone would see past the recent struggles. Someone would give me a chance. No one wanted me. I called every agent, every contact, every person who had ever promised to help me. The word is out, Marco. Teams think you're too much trouble. I'll change. I'll get in shape. It's not just the fitness. It's the attitude, the gambling debts, the parties. You've burned too many bridges. There has to be someone. There isn't. I'm sorry. I went from 15 million a year to nothing in 6 months. Just like that. The money disappeared faster than I thought possible. It turns out, when you're spending 100,000 euros a month, and suddenly you have no income, the math gets ugly very quickly. The cars were repossessed. The houses were sold. The watches, the jewelry, the art, all liquidated to pay debts I didn't even know I had. Valentina stayed through the sale of the first house. She left after the second. I didn't sign up for this, she said, packing her bags, her beautiful face twisted with contempt. I married Marco Benedetti the superstar, not Marco Benedetti the failure. Valentina, I love you. We can get through this together. She laughed. A cold, cutting sound. Love? Marco, I never loved you. I loved what you represented. The lifestyle, the status, the access. Without that, she shrugged. You're just another broke footballer with bad habits and no future. The divorce took everything I had left. She had better lawyers. She had documented every mistake I'd ever made. She walked away with the remaining assets, and I walked away with nothing. The first night, I slept on a park bench. I couldn't believe it was real. I kept waiting to wake up, kept waiting for someone to tell me it was a joke, kept waiting for my old life to return. But the bench was cold, and the hunger was real, and nobody was coming to save me. I tried calling old friends, teammates I had partied with, people who had sworn they would always be there. Most didn't answer. The ones who did made excuses. It's complicated, Marco. I'd love to help, but maybe in a few months, when things settle down. I understood. In my world, my former world, failure was contagious. Nobody wanted to catch it. I wandered the streets of Milan for 3 weeks, eating from trash cans when I had to, sleeping wherever I could find shelter, becoming invisible. That was the strangest part. 2 years earlier, I couldn't walk down the street without being mobbed. Now, people looked right through me. I was dirty, unshaven, wearing the same clothes I'd worn for a week. I looked like what I was, a homeless man with nowhere to go. Nobody recognized the famous Marco Benedetti, because Marco Benedetti no longer existed. The call that saved my life came on a Tuesday. I was sitting in a train station, trying to stay warm, when my phone buzzed. I still had the phone, though I hadn't been able to pay the bill in months. But somehow, a call came through. Marco. The voice was familiar. From another lifetime. Who is this? It's Luca. Luca Ferrara. From the neighborhood. Luca. My best friend from childhood. The kid I used to play football with in the alleys. The kid whose family was even poorer than mine. The kid I had forgotten. Ignored. Laughed about with my fancy new friends. Luca. I heard what happened. I've been trying to find you for weeks. How did you? My cousin works at the train station. He recognized you. Said you've been sleeping there. Silence. Shame flooding through me like poison. Marco, come stay with us. We have a couch. It's not much, but it's warm. And Maria will cook for you. You remember Maria, my wife. Luca, I can't. After everything you can. And you will. I'm not asking. I'm telling. His voice cracked. You're my brother, Marco. You've always been my brother. I don't care what happened. I don't care what you did. You need help. Let me help you. I started crying. Right there in the train station. A grown man. A former superstar. Sobbing into a phone he couldn't afford. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I'll come. Luca's apartment was in a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Naples. 2 bedrooms. A tiny kitchen. A living room that doubled as a dining room. For people already living there. Luca, Maria, and their 2 children. Sophia, who was 6, and little Marco, who was 3. They had named their son after me. Back when I was still someone worth naming a child after. You named him? Of course. Luca smiled. You were my hero, Marco. You still are. I didn't deserve those words. I knew I didn't. But I held on to them anyway. Because they were all I had. The couch was uncomfortable. The apartment was crowded. The neighborhood was loud. And it was the happiest I had been in years. Maria cooked meals that reminded me of my mother's cooking. Sophia showed me her drawings every day after school. Little Marco followed me everywhere, calling me Zio Marco, Uncle Marco, with a trust one hadn't earned. And Luca never asked for anything. Never mentioned the years I had ignored him. Never brought up the time I had laughed at him at a party, when Valentina had made a joke about Marco's poor friend from the ghetto. He just accepted me. Broken, humbled, destroyed. He accepted all of it. One night, about a month in, I couldn't sleep. I was lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I had lost. Luca came out of his bedroom. Can't sleep either? He sat down in the chair across from me. Marco, can I ask you something? Anything. What happened? I read the stories. I saw the headlines. But what really happened? I was quiet for a long time. I forgot who I was, I finally said. I forgot where I came from. I thought the money made me special. I thought the fame made me better than everyone else. I thought I didn't need anyone, especially not the people who had helped me become who I was. I looked at him. I was wrong, Luca. About everything. I was so completely, utterly wrong. He nodded slowly. What are you going to do about it? What do you mean? Are you going to stay broken? Or are you going to rebuild? I didn't have an answer. Because here's the thing, Marco. Luca leaned forward. You're 25 years old. You're not injured. You're not sick. You're just lost. But lost can be found. If you're willing to do the work. The clubs don't want me. Then make them want you. How? The same way you made them want you the first time. Work. Train. Prove that you're worth the risk. I don't even have a place to train. There's a park down the street. There's a gym at the community center. There's always a way, Marco. If you want it badly enough. I stared at him. This man who had nothing. Who worked 12-hour shifts at a factory to support his family. Who lived in a cramped apartment and wore clothes from second-hand stores. This man was telling me that anything was possible. And somehow, against all evidence, I believed him. I got a job delivering pizzas. It was humbling. A former Real Madrid striker, riding a scooter through the streets of Naples, delivering food to people who had no idea who I was. But it was money. Honest money. Money I could give to Luca and Maria to help with the extra mouth they were feeding. Money that felt different than the millions I had once thrown away. It felt earned. It felt real. Every morning, I woke up at 5, ran for an hour before my shift started, worked until 6 in the evening, then went to the park and trained until dark. Alone, with a ball I had bought for €12 at a discount store. The same price my father had paid, all those years ago. The first few weeks were brutal. My body had forgotten what it meant to be an athlete. My lungs burned. My muscles screamed. My mind told me 1,000 times a day to give up. But I didn't. Because every time I wanted to quit, I thought of Luca, of his family, of the trust they had placed in me. I couldn't waste another chance. Not again. It was about 2 months into my training when I met her. I was in the park, working on my footwork, when I noticed someone watching me. A woman, young, maybe mid-20s, sitting on a bench with a sketch pad, drawing something I couldn't see. I ignored her at first, focused on my drills. But she kept watching. And eventually, curiosity got the better of me. "Can I help you with something?" She looked up, and I felt something shift in my chest. She wasn't beautiful like Valentina, not in that polished, perfect, untouchable way. She was beautiful like a sunrise, like something real and warm and alive. Dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, paint stains on her fingers, eyes that seemed to see straight through me. "I'm sketching you," she said. No apology, no embarrassment, just a statement of fact. "Why?" "Because you're interesting. The way you move, the way you focus. There's something, I don't know, something worth capturing." I laughed. "I'm just a guy kicking a ball around." "No." She shook her head. "You're not. You're a guy trying to become something. I can see it in every movement you make." I didn't know what to say. "I'm Elena," she said. "Marco. Nice to meet you, Marco. Mind if I keep sketching?" "Go ahead." And she did. And I went back to training. But something had changed. Something I couldn't name. Elena became a regular presence in my evenings. She was working on her master's thesis, a series of paintings about transformation and redemption. "I'm documenting people and moments of change," she explained one evening. "Athletes, artists, anyone who's fighting to become something new. And you think I qualify? I think you qualify more than anyone I've ever met." We started talking, really talking, not the shallow conversations I'd had in VIP rooms and exclusive parties. Real conversations about life and dreams and fears and hopes. She told me about growing up in a small village near Florence, about her parents who didn't understand why she wanted to be an artist, about the years of struggle, working odd jobs, scraping by, to pursue something that might never pay off. I told her about Naples, about my parents, about discovering football. I didn't tell her about the fame, the money, the fall. I wasn't ready. I was afraid that if she knew, she would see me differently. And I couldn't bear that. We started dating about a month after we met. Simple dates. Walks along the waterfront. Cheap dinners at trattorias that served food better than any Michelin-starred restaurant. Evenings in the park. Her sketching, me training, together in comfortable silence. She never asked about my past, never demanded explanations. She just accepted me as I was, a 26-year-old pizza delivery guy with dreams of something more. And that acceptance, that unconditional presence, it healed something in me I hadn't known was broken. "I love you," she said one evening. We were sitting on the beach, watching the sun set over the Bay of Naples. Her head on my shoulder, my arm around her waist. "You don't know everything about me," I said. "I know enough. There are things, bad things. Everyone has bad things, Marco. It's what you do with them that matters." She lifted her head, looked into my eyes. "I don't love who you were. I love who you're becoming." And whoever that person is, I want to be there when he arrives. I kissed her, and in that moment, I made a decision. I would tell her everything. But first, I would become someone worth telling. The path back to professional football was not straight. I trained for another 6 months, until my body was in the best shape of my life. Better than when I was 21. Better than I had ever been. Because now I understood what I hadn't understood then. Talent wasn't enough. It had never been enough. Without discipline, without humility, without respect for the gift I had been given, talent was just potential waiting to be wasted. I started making calls. The contacts who used to ignore me, some of them answered now. Word had gotten around. Marco Benedetti was training again. Marco Benedetti looked different. Marco Benedetti might be worth a second look. But most doors remained closed. Too risky. Too much baggage. We can't take the chance. I understood. I didn't blame them. I had given them every reason to doubt me. The call that changed everything came from the last person I expected. Marco, this is Coach Rossi. Johnny Rossi, the man who had coached me in the Napoli Youth Academy. The man who had seen something in a skinny kid from the alleys and turned him into a professional footballer. The man I had completely ignored once I made it big. I hadn't spoken to him in 7 years. Coach, I heard you're training again. Yes, sir. And I heard you're actually taking it seriously this time. I am, sir. I swear I am. Good. A pause. I'm the head coach at Lazio now. We need a striker. I can get you a trial. But Marco, his voice hardened. This is your last chance. Not just with me. With football. If you waste this, there won't be another. I won't waste it, coach. I promise. Don't promise me. Show me. The trial was brutal. 3 days of evaluation. Fitness tests. Technical drills. Scrimmages against the first team. Every eye in the organization watching, waiting for me to fail. I didn't fail. I was faster than I'd been at 21. Stronger. More focused. And most importantly, hungrier. Not for fame. Not for money. For redemption. For the chance to prove that I wasn't the person I had become, but the person I was always meant to be. They offered me a contract at the end of the 3rd day. 1 year. Minimum salary. Performance bonuses if I delivered. It was less money than I used to spend on watches. I signed it without hesitation. That night, I told Elena everything. We sat in her tiny apartment, surrounded by her paintings, and I told her the whole story. The fame, the fortune, the fall, the park benches, the pizza deliveries, the couch in Luca's apartment. Everything. She listened without interrupting. Her face unreadable. When I finished, I waited for the judgment, for the disappointment, for the realization that she had fallen in love with a lie. Instead, she reached out and took my hand. Thank you for telling me. You're not angry? Why would I be angry? Because I hid it from you. Because I'm not who you thought I was. She smiled. That sunrise smile that had captured me from the first moment. Marco, you're exactly who I thought you were. A man trying to become something better. The details are just details. But all that money, all that fame, I threw it all away. And now you have a chance to earn it back. The right way? That's not a failure, Marco. That's a story. The best stories are about people who fall and get back up. She squeezed my hand. I didn't fall in love with a superstar. I fell in love with a pizza delivery guy who trained in the park every night like his life depended on it. That person is still here. The superstar, that's just what comes next. The first 6 months at Lazio were a revelation. Not because of the goals, though there were goals. Not because of the assists, though there were assists. But because I finally understood what football was supposed to be. Not a platform for ego. Not a source of wealth. But a gift. A responsibility. A chance to bring joy to people who needed it. I played for the fans in the stands. For the kids who dreamed of being where I was. For my parents, who finally came to watch me play again. For Luca and Maria and little Marco, who wore my jersey with pride. For Elena, who sat in the stands at every home game, sketching, creating, believing in me. I played for everyone who had helped me along the way, everyone I had once ignored, everyone I had once thought I was better than. I played for them, and I played better than I ever had. By the end of the season, I was one of the top scorers in Serie A. The comeback story that nobody expected. The headlines that I had once craved. Now they meant nothing. What meant something was the man I had become. The man who called his parents every week. The man who spent his days off at Luca's apartment, playing with the kids, helping with homework. The man who came home to Elena every night, grateful for every moment with her. The man who understood that success without character is just noise. I proposed to Elena on the beach where she had first told me she loved me. A simple ring. Nothing extravagant. Just a promise. I'm not the man I used to be, I said. And I'm not the man I'm going to become. But I know that whoever I am, I want to be with you. If you'll have me. She was crying. Laughing. Both at once. Yes, she said. Yes. 1,000 times yes. We got married 6 months later. A small ceremony. Just family and close friends. My parents sat in the front row, my father crying openly now, no longer ashamed of his emotions. Luca was my best man. Coach Rossi gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. And Elena, my Elena, walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, looking like everything I had ever wanted and never known I was looking for. The second wedding of my life was nothing like the first. No celebrities. No magazine coverage. No €3 million price tag. Just love. Real love. The kind that doesn't care about bank accounts or Instagram followers. The kind that stays when everything else leaves. 1 year later, I held my daughter for the first time. Lucia Maria Benedetti, named after my mother and Elena's grandmother. She was so small, so perfect, so completely dependent on me to protect her, to provide for her, to show her how to live. I looked at her, and I made a promise. Not the kind of promise I had made before, the promises I had broken so easily. A different kind, the kind that lives in your bones. I will never be the man I was, I whispered to her. I will never let success make me forget who I am. I will never put money or fame or ego above the people I love. I will be the father you deserve. The father I should have had the sense to appreciate when I still could. She yawned, stretched her tiny fingers, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was finally home. I'm 31 years old now. I play for Napoli again, back where it all started. I could have gone anywhere. The big clubs came calling once I proved myself at Lazio, but I chose to come home. To play in front of fans who had watched me grow up. To live near my parents, who are finally getting the grandchildren they always wanted. To build a life, not a brand. Elena and I have 3 children now. Lucia, who is 5 and already showing her mother's artistic talent. Alessandro, who is 3 and obsessed with football. And baby Johnny, named after Coach Rossi, who is 6 months old and the calmest baby I've ever seen. The money came back. Of course it did. I'm a top Serie A striker again. The contracts, the endorsements, the millions of euros. But this time, I know what to do with it. Most of it goes into savings, into investments, into a foundation that Elena and I started together. The Benedetti Foundation for Youth Financial Literacy. It started as a conversation. Elena and I were lying in bed one night, talking about my past, about how I had thrown away a fortune because nobody had ever taught me what money actually meant. If someone had sat me down at 18, I said, and explained compound interest and budgeting and the difference between assets and liabilities, everything might have been different. Then teach them, Elena said. Teach who? The kids who are coming up now. The ones who will have the same opportunities you had. The same temptations. The same chances to mess it all up. I looked at her. You really think I could do that? I think you're the only one who can. Because you've been on both sides. You know what it costs to learn these lessons the hard way. The foundation launched a year later. We work with youth academies across Italy, teaching young athletes about money management, about financial planning, about the difference between spending and investing, about how quickly it can all disappear if you're not careful. I tell them my story, the whole ugly truth, the millions I made, the millions I wasted, the park benches, the pizza deliveries, the long road back. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I say, I'm telling you because I wish someone had told me. Because the best time to learn these lessons is now, before you have money to lose. Last month, a kid came up to me after one of our workshops, 17 years old, already being scouted by top clubs, already hearing whispers about massive contracts. Mr. Benedetti, how do I make sure I don't end up like you? I smiled. You just asked that question. That's the first step. Keep asking it. Keep surrounding yourself with people who will tell you the truth. Keep remembering where you came from. And when you make it big, and you will make it big, don't forget the people who helped you get there. He nodded. One more thing, I said. What's that? Success is a gift. Talent is a gift. Money is a gift. But gifts can be taken away if you don't treat them with respect. Never think you're entitled to any of it. Be grateful every single day, and use what you're given to help others. He looked at me for a long moment. You're different than I thought you'd be. How so? I read about the old Marco Benedetti. The parties, the gambling, the attitude. But you're not like that at all. That's because the old Marco Benedetti had to die, so the new one could be born. I think about the journey sometimes. Late at night, when the house is quiet, and I'm watching my children sleep. I think about the boy from Naples who had nothing, about the superstar who had everything, about the homeless man who had less than nothing, about the pizza delivery guy who found love in a park, about the comeback player who earned a second chance. All of them are me. All of them made me who I am. And I wouldn't trade a single moment of pain, a single night on a park bench, a single humiliation, because without the fall, I never would have learned to truly fly. People ask me sometimes what the secret to success is. They want a formula, a trick, a shortcut, but there isn't one. There's only this. Success without character is just noise. Fame without humility is just a timer counting down to disaster. Money without wisdom is just a burden waiting to crush you. The things that matter, the things that last. Family, love, purpose, gratitude. Those don't come from achievements. They come from who you become along the way. I'm 31 years old. I have maybe 5 more years of professional football left. Maybe more if I'm lucky. And when it ends, I won't be afraid. Because I have Elena. I have my children. I have my family and my friends and a purpose that goes beyond any game. I have everything I ever needed. I just had to lose everything first to see it. My name is Marco Benedetti. I was once the most famous footballer in Italy. Then I was nothing. And now, surrounded by the people I love, doing work that matters, living a life I never dreamed was possible. Now I am finally, truly, myself. And that is worth more than any trophy, any contract, any amount of money in the world.